Hi guys, it's been a while actually. And the thing is that I recorded this tutorial at the beginning of the year and I just didn't have the time to edit it. Certain tools have changed and part of the workflow too. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if to release it or scrap it, but I figured maybe someone could learn something. So here it is. And by the way, if you want to support the channel, I'll leave all this blend file with all the assets that you're seeing, plus the textures that we're gonna make at $5. So if you wanna grab it, links are in the description and comments. That's it. I'll go through all the process so you can make them yourself, no need to buy anything. I have plenty of different workflows. I decided to start with this one because it's probably the one that I use the most. It consists basically in photo modeling, using photos to easily produce assets. Also, I do it mostly because it's fun, and for me it's fun at least. It's efficient too, and it lets me produce a lot of assets in a really small amount of time. And finally, just saying that this is not a technical tutorial. I'm not gonna explain you how to use Blender or how to use Photoshop. I think there are plenty of tutorials that explain the basics. I will recommend Blender Guru, but again, I think Blender has a huge amount of people creating tutorials about basic stuff, so I recommend you first to go there and just learn those things. I will try to just show you a little bit of the UV unwrapping and some techniques to actually project the UVs, but other than that, I don't think there is any point in actually explaining that, at least not here. In this first part, I want to address the creation of the master texture, or like a mother texture. The idea behind this is having a texture that has plenty of detail to pick from in order to create different assets and not being loading different textures over and over, or just like finding the detail easy. Also, with this way of arranging your texture, you can create essentially a lot of interesting designs. For this specific set of buildings, I wanted to create something probably like Judge Dredd, like industrial brutalism, a lot of concrete, a little bit of a sci-fi stuff. I went to Unsplash and just gathered some of these photos, and after a couple of ones that I found were interesting, that was enough. I'll start just brushing the canvas with a little bit of texture just to get a slight variation in values. So eventually I can blend different photos with this texture and use this texture also to fix my values. Most of the process that you're gonna see is just me dragging photos, adjusting the levels, again with the levels tool, and balance color or hue saturation. And at the same time, I will use the blending modes of the layers. If you click in the layer, double click, you will open this menu that will have different blending options with the sliders. You can either blend this layer or blend this layer on the layer below, I guess, depending on the values. So that's super useful, and I'll do this over and over just to keep my values cohesive, I guess, because I'm gonna make a normal map from this texture, and I don't want to have like all these black and white spots jumping from one to another, and this could end up with a weird or wonky normal map. It's not 100% necessary, but I just like to fix it, and for the same reason I'm gonna use some lighten and darken adjustments in the blending modes of the layer. I like to add the different tiles of textures or photos and mask them with some brushwork too. Therefore I can have like a more natural blending with the different photos and keeping some texture. You can go as painterly as you want, it's up to your taste, but just, I don't know, just make it your own. Once the concrete is done, I will start dropping some detail, and you don't need to have all of these textures or photos in a 2D dimension. You can find textures that are slightly distorted. Just make your life easy and don't go with the most distorted image, and just try to find some plain photos. In any case, if you find like some distorted photos, it's okay, because there are plenty of ways to actually fix the distortion in Photoshop. I'm not gonna go into that because honestly I just don't care. If something is not working, I will probably most likely just paint or just, I don't know, use the clone tool or the repair tool so I can fix that texture. I also try to use a lot of the smudge tool with hardness at 100%, so I can drag pixels and fix again my texture, or just like have like more elongated parts that I know I'm gonna use in the asset. It doesn't need to be perfect at all, just good enough. Let's not forget that this has to be fast, so I don't want to spend forever and ever fixing every inch of square of this, or every pixel, I guess, of this texture. But there are some things that I will have in mind as I'm dropping more textures or more photos. The first thing is to have variety. I want to have a decent amount of detail that is not the same one over and over. For that reason, you're not gonna see me adding a bunch of building textures, or at least not many facades. I'll drop a couple of ones and then I will change to gravel or other type of detail. I'll keep some areas more clean and some others more rusty or more dirty. This is why it's super useful to pick the subject before even starting this stuff and gather your photos properly. The second great point is to keep areas of rest. Don't overload the texture with detail, just have plenty of areas of rest. So keep it probably in a 70-30 ratio. 30% will be mostly detail, like really high frequency detail, and the other 70% you can keep it like in a low frequency in terms of detail. This is basic design, and that will allow you to create more interesting or pleasing to the eye assets. As a third point, or like a third key point, just be aware of the scale, or at least have an idea of the scale in advance, because depending on the size of this texture, some detail will be more or less, I don't know how to say it, but because the texture could look off if you're using like a big scale, let's say like a building, in comparison, for example, like a, I don't know, like a table. So the tile of concrete will be different and the resolution will be different, but overall this is a 4K texture, so it should work with many assets. You can try to tile this texture by going to filter, other, and offset. This is only if you want to have it perfectly tiled. Just type half of the size of the canvas. In this case it will be 2K. This will not be necessary, at least not with the type of process that I'm gonna use. But if you want to make it like a continuous seamless texture, you will need to actually arrange it this way. I tend to create this other type of layout, more conventional 3D trims, at top and bottom, and at the center the seamless style. This will work very well with certain types of assets, like creating sci-fi corridors or interiors, or maybe all the ruins. To add a little bit of detail, I will add some simple tiles. I'll go to filter, style, and tiles. Add as many tiles as you want, and then just merge it using blending modes, and maybe some bevel and emboss to make it pop a little bit more. I actually had to record this twice since I lost the original video file, but here is the main texture. I made a couple of variations with some red stencils and a completely different one just in case, but I ended up using this one through the whole process. Aside, I made a city lights texture to use as an emissive and a couple of ad photos, maybe for billboards. Alright, we are here in Materialize. This is a free software. I'm mainly using it to create normal maps, but you can create a full PBR material here, which means creating like the roughness and the AO, the high map, etc. But you could also use other types of tools. I remember that Photoshop used to have, I'm not sure if it's still there, but you could create some 3D elements with normals and high maps there. Also through AI you can make displacement maps, and I think there are some even add-ons that let you use Stable Diffusion as a normal map creator. And I think there's not much difference with using this or other add-ons. I don't know, up to you again. Just choose whatever you like, but I'm sticking to Materialize. I'll start by creating a high map, but I'll probably not use it, I'm not sure, because the scale of the buildings and the amount of buildings that I'll have. But if you were trying to make some rock formations or just some like architecture, ancient architecture, ruins, even for isolated props, I think it's super useful to have a high map and to create displacements and give like a little bit of extra detail, like free detail. The process here is very simple. Just load a model texture by hitting O in the diffuse map, and from there you can create the high map by hitting create, and then same for the normal. You can leave it as it is or just play with the sliders till you get something that you like. Then click in show full material, and when you get to the right spot just hit S to save it as a BMP, or maybe just choose JPG or any file, I don't know, PNG, whatever you like. Alright, now that we are in Blender, I can show you the material setup. I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna try to do this like as I actually do it and not pre-recorded, because otherwise it's a little bit harder for me. So I probably will struggle a little, so I'm sorry for that. It's just hard for me to just do it, explain it, and at the same time trying to follow my process, but I'll try my best, and I apologize for any other I don't know if I don't made up my point clear, or I end up just confusing you. I'm sorry. Normally I already have like a setup for all my materials, and it's like a really simple setup, and so I can spend less time worrying about what node to add and all that stuff. And it's just, let me just make this bigger, one texture, which will be in this case our master texture, and this texture will be connected to the roughness through a color ramp and our bump, our normal through a bump node. We can also connect normally, because in this case we actually did the normal map. You can just drag your texture, the normal map, or either just direct to the normal. Just remember to keep the image once you actually load the image, like let's say you keep it in non-color, like that. So this basic node is just to save time, because sometimes I have way too many materials, or I just don't want to be constantly searching for a node system. So I'll just have it pre-made like this, and in case that I need to tweak stuff, I just have like a hue saturation and I bright and contrast for the roughness. So this is the node tree that I made. So using my base clean, I created this node material for my different materials, I guess. The only difference that it has is that I attached a normal, because we have the map, and I connected through a normal map to the bump. It's just plain simple. And through the color ramp, I will control the different levels of reflectiveness or roughness that we will have in the different materials. The other difference that you will find is this other setup with an ambient occlusion masking two materials through a mix shader. The second material is just a rust, kind of like dirty material. You will see it like this. It's just a rusty texture that I made. Once it's connected through this ambient occlusion node, you will see that is basically in the areas of ambient occlusion. If I approach it, it will give you ambient occlusion, no? So it will blend the materials in them. It's really effective in case that you want to add this feeling of dirtiness or like greasy to certain props. Or maybe if you want to blend two materials, like, I don't know, maybe sand, in case that you are in the desert or something like that. I don't know, it's up to you, but just don't start stacking a bunch of materials on top, because it will kind of like defeat the purpose of keeping the scene light with just one texture. So these materials, although they are very matte, you will see that these are not completely matte. They have some subtle changes in the reflection map or in the roughness map, and right now it's looking kind of like this. So just the areas that are more in the metal side have highly reflection surfaces than the concrete, for example. The other concrete material only has just a slight less value, so I will make it darker in this node, but that's it. For the reflective one, it's just full reflection. I added more specular. This is not completely I don't know, like accurate. As I said, it's just more like a stylized approach. This is not how glass will work, but for this kind of assets that I'm gonna do, I think it's just good enough. In this case, it's highly reflective. So the dark areas in this case are areas that lack roughness, so therefore highly reflective. So when you have a color ramp, you can just drag it and just pick as much darkness as you want, and that will be your base reflection. It will be the same for metallic. The areas that are black, they are gonna be lacking metalness, so they will be more plasticky, I guess. For my metals, it's just, again, same stuff, just more metallic. And the main difference that I did is just having like a darker metal and a shiny metal. This one is supposed to be the shiniest. Right now, they look kind of like the same, but if I show you the map, you will see that this one is highly reflective. I wanted to have this type of, I don't know, reflective metal, like silver, I guess, for some spaceships, and some other material. I don't know, because this metal could be too much, but I have these other ones that are more matte, and of course a darker one, because I feel it will give a little bit of extra detail and variation, so it will make the design more interesting. And that's it. All of them are driven by the same texture, so it will be good with our render. And I think it will give us enough of a room to play around with the designs that we're gonna make. Okay, I'm gonna try to explain you a little bit of how to project this texture and create our buildings. Let's go to the UV editing tab, and you're probably gonna have this. There will not be this texture here, so you will have to find it, but as you can see, I only have a couple of textures that are mostly the ones that you saw already under rust material.
and I always like to just have my material editing here shader. I'm gonna try my best, but in any case, just remember that you can ask any questions in the comments and I'll try my best also to answer. I'm gonna insert a cube. By default, all the primitives are already unwrapped, so if you go to edit mode with tab, you will see that this is already projected in our texture. So what we're gonna do, and essentially this modeling is just all about projecting all of our faces. These faces in this case is just a cube, but trying to find detail by just picking each one of this. Like let's say if I pick this one, and I will try to find the right detail. So first of all, I need to copy the material. So I'm gonna copy the concrete one, that is the base one. So now, as you see, it's already unwrapped. And as I move this face, you see how it's changing. By the way, disable the overlays, so you can go here and just check on and uncheck this. I have it already mapped in a shortcut, so I can basically pick and then just pick another detail. Honestly, essentially, that's what we're gonna do all the time. We're gonna just drag and trying to find the best detail or the best, I don't know, whatever it suits better our asset. In order to do that, we need to know at least 3 different ways of unwrapping the textures, and the first one will be cube projection, the second one cylinder projection, and the third one, the one that probably I use the most, is projection from view. The first one, if you go to tab again, we're gonna go to edit mode, and we select all the layers with A. Like you will see that it gets all lit in. You'll see right now, because I move all around, it's like messy. But if you hit U and then you go to cube projection, you will see that they are all projected in our texture overall. It doesn't matter if we have like a cylinder or a complex mesh, it will try to project this texture in a cube that is around our mesh. So imagine, like, I don't know, like there is like a sort of like an invisible cube, and it's being used as a mapping way. So if we had a cylinder, it will be pretty much the same. Like there will be a cube, and from there it will try to map this texture from there. If I pick just one of those faces and move it around, we can find detail again that we like. Now if I start to extrude this, and that's when things start to change, you see how the texture gets like all stretched. And in theory, all you need to do is pick the faces that you were extruding and just hit again cube projection, and then you will have again all projected. But you can notice that it is now a scale to the size of the face. Other thing that you can do is just go to option and correct face attributes, and as you will see, if I extrude, it should just be completely tiled immediately. This is super nice, and I'll be all the time like checking and unchecking this, because if, let's say, I already have set up a building with this texture and suddenly I go to edit mode and I move it, I'm gonna select everything, and if I move it, you will see that the texture will stay in place. And this is good, as you saw, when I am extruding, but sometimes if I already have locked my detail, just pay attention, because you don't want to lose what you already did. The other thing is that if you start to stretch this in this way, you will see how the texture also gets stretched. So then you will need to reproject or just scale the texture itself. So I can just pick the faces that I need to rescale, and in here just trying to find the right size, no? Like maybe like this. I'm using the circles just to check, but that's one way. Or you might not need to do this. You could just pick the face that you need and just fix it, or just, let's say, I'm gonna scale it again, just reproject the whole thing, cube projection. But in here you need to be sure that it's a correct aspect ratio. So if I uncheck it and I go into object mode, change the rotation and scale, so now it's resetted, and I go on cube projection, you will see that it's correct. You see, it doesn't matter that much, like what is important here is just to understand that what it's doing is just to using a bound box like this one, and it's projecting the textures in there. and just remembering to correct the scale, just check and uncheck the correct face attributes depending on what you want to do. All right, so let's say I want to have a cylinder. So normally, you will see that the cylinder has a different type of layout, I guess, of the UVs. So let's copy the material. In essence, what you have with the cylinder is something similar to the cube, but now the UVs are going to be projected in this shape. So that means that each one of the different faces that the cylinder has should be correct. So they will be equal, as you see. And you will have like a top and bottom face that is projected from their respective poles. So that's pretty much it. But you need to just pay attention because sometimes, depending on the geometry, you might have like some stretching or some things that don't quite work. So if you want to reproject a cylinder, what you need to do, let's just, I don't know, let's just make something really weird. Let's say I don't have this check, so it will be stretching really horrible as I extrude. It's all super stretched. One way will be just selecting everything and just cube projection, and then you will have something like this. As you can see now, the distance is not equal because he's trying to just match the cube. So I don't know, well, the software is matching the cube. And you will see also that there will be some cuts because it's a cube projection. You will see that suddenly we have this line here that is like a seam that is based on the angle of the corner of the cube. In the corners you will have there. So that's not exactly, honestly, I don't care that much. I just like to project it correctly sometimes. So what I will do is just, let's pick all the faces. Go to the top view, so you will hit 7 or just, yeah, top view. And now go to U, and instead of cube projection, hit cylinder projection. The only thing that you need to do is to change this view on equator to view on poles. Otherwise you will have this. And also this will be super stretched, and yeah, you don't want that. Let's go back, view projection, cylinder projection, sorry. Now just change this to be on poles and add a scale to bound, so it will be just attached to this, and it's there. So it's all correctly, as you can see, the distance is correct. Now it's equal, and now it's a matter of finding just detail. You can find it anywhere. You can pick the faces that you want, and then just, I don't know, let's say here. This got like destroyed because as I did cylinder projection on poles, this will get projected as a cylinder too, and of course we don't want that. I mean, here is the last step, and it's just project from view, and that's the projection that I use the most. And it's just, if you hit U and then project from view, what it's doing is just projecting from the camera view that we are using right now, that is an orthographic view. So if I hit, for example, 3, we'll be projecting from this view. And this probably will not illustrate as much what I want to show you, but let's try it, for example, with this. And I'm gonna stretch it, and now I'm gonna pick just these faces, and I'm gonna reproject, but just from this view. So you will see that it's perfectly scaled, and now I can just pick the material. But because this is a cube, you cannot see the point, but it's just essentially just reprojecting from the view that you are checking. And this is super useful because I tend to just work, I'm constantly shifting the different views from the top view to the lateral views, so I can just project and reproject from the view a specific detail. Also, because this is a cube, you might not see the point, but if I actually try to, let's use another model, something that is more organic. Alright, so I have this bubble of, well, it's something that I had for another project, but let's just remove the materials and just copy this one. Alright, so right now, this one has UVs that are projected in a random way. If I open it, you will see that it's super shitty. So what can you do? So if I pick, like, let's say I'm gonna just select everything and project from view from here. So what it's gonna do is just using this camera as the main point of projection, and you will see how the texture will stretch as we approach the sides, you see? Because it's projecting from this point of view. So in theory, you can project any photo if you have a, I don't know, a displacement map or a depth map, and have like a full environment just from one camera, and that's super useful too. So let's try to make a building just to illustrate how more or less I'll work and how you will try to pick the details. So let's duplicate this one and let's use this one as a base. Oh, this is the reflecting one. Let me just grab this. All right, first of all, create a simple shape. But before, I need to apply rotation and scale, so I will have the proper bevel there. So Ctrl B, and then you have your building. That's our building. So in essence, it's done pretty much all the job. So all what I need to do is now pick the faces that I need. Let's say this is the face, but as you can see, it's all stretched. So one thing that I can do is just go to that face and keep projection or project from view, and then I have it. I don't know, whatever. Just let's keep it for now simple. What I want to do now is just use the mirror modifier so I can find interesting patterns inside our texture. Honestly, I always use hard ups, so to make arrays and to make, I don't know, all sorts of shortcuts. So in this case, to mirror, I will go with Alex, and I will have this, and I just need to pick the side, and you will have it mirror both sides. But if you don't want to use it, you can just go here and go find the mirror modifier, and now you need to pick the side that you're gonna mirror. In this case, is this white axis. Does it help? I forgot the name of this letter in English. Why? Well, whatever. It's this axis. So just pick axis and bisect, and you will see that now it's mirror. There are plenty of add-ons that do the same stuff. I'm very used to hard ups. Is mirroring our geometry using the origin as a point of mirror. All right, you could also mirror in the other axis, but for now, and also because I like to have asymmetry most of the time when I'm doing buildings or any other asset, I like to have just one mirror plane. So in the other one, I will have a different type of detail. So if I pick our UV right now, you will find that there is something different now happening. If I make this bigger and I start to move this, you will see that it's also mirroring the UVs, and that's super cool because now we can start trying to find some different patterns or detail. So I don't want to spend too much time, but let's find something that resembles whatever. Yeah, I think this is the fun part actually, because I like to play around and see what is cool. Like, let's say this is actually cool. Something like this, for example, like this something, I don't know. For example, something like this, or just this works. You can also rotate the UV. You can hit R and you will rotate, and just type 90 or 45, and then you will have different degrees of rotation in the UV. So now that we have this and we found some detail, and now what we can do is try to enhance these details that we found through some basic modeling techniques. And we can do this with loops, with the knife, or in my case I like to do it with just an add-on that is called Quick Shape. So let's start with the loop. I'll just make a loop, I guess. So let's pick this place. Remember that this is mirror. I forgot that I mirrored this, but now we can pick this detail and just extrude it. Let's try to do the same from this side. So I'm gonna rotate it, make some loops in here, for example, and maybe here, I don't know, this and this. So now I can pick this face that we selected and just extrude it. And now we have this. Textures will be stretching, but I don't care that much, so it's okay. And the other way, so this is the basic way to do it, just loops and extrude and just move the things around. The other thing that you can do is to use the knife. So with K, you can just select, let's try to select something from here. You can just go here and pick, let's go, I don't know, I'm gonna pick just this place, and that's it. And hit enter, and then you see that we created the loop. Now we just need to select the face. So I'm gonna hit 3 to change to faces, and select faces, and let's extrude it, but along the normal. And that's it. Now we have some detail there that is very simple, but nothing too complex, with just Blender tools. But I will use an add-on that is Quick Shape, and if I hit Shift F, I will have access to this menu that will give me like a lasso tool. So I don't know if you see it maybe, but this is a lasso tool that lets me create loops and extrude. Select this part of the mesh and I can extrude it. Well, or I'd push it if you want. So if you hit Alt Control, you will push it, and if you hit Alt but just Alt, he will extrude it. Now you can see there the extrusion. Let's try here maybe, I don't know, let's pick this place and just push it. You see? So it's there. It's just too deep. The only thing is that as you make more cuts and cuts with this add-on, you will start to have some kind of like I don't know, like some things will not extrude the right way because you will have so many cuts that the geometry will not allow you to push that much. And now what I want to do is just change the point of mirroring. So I can either change the mirror to the 3D cursor like this, or normally what I do is just select everything in edit mode, uncheck this, and then I will just move it to the place that I want it. So there, and now I can mirror and it will choose that as the mirror point, and now we have a more complex geometry. And you will also have more complexity when you pick the different UVs. So if I go here and let's pick this, the UVs were mirror also, so they are on top of each other. And if I move this around, let's go actually pick this one too, and let's make it bigger to see how suddenly we have multiple arrays inside the UVs. And this is cool. I think this allows you to just find interesting patterns, and yeah, you can just start just trying to find stuff. Remember that you can also rotate and just again just search for something cool in your own texture. Let's say we have this shape, no? I'm gonna duplicate it, Shift D, I'm gonna apply the mirror modifier, and I'm gonna just find another middle point. Just remember to check this, because otherwise this is what happens if you keep this checked. So if I move it around, you will see again the texture is changing. And again, this is problematic if what I want is to keep the detail locked. Alright, so I'm gonna just uncheck it, and maybe, you know what, let's find more detail inside our texture. You move this to the side, maybe there, and I'm gonna mirror it again. Now I have this, and I'm gonna make this smaller, and maybe just push it here, maybe there. What you can do now is mirror this object using this as a reference. So you can go, let's apply the modifier. You can also, I also tend to apply the modifiers constantly. I don't care that much if it's destructive, because again, this is, I don't know, this is supposed to be very sketchy and fast. So the freedom of just applying the modifier and not caring just lets me be more creative at the end. So I'm gonna just mirror it again, but this time, again, I'm gonna use the y-axis, sorry. I'm gonna pick the mirror object as a reference point for the plane of mirroring. So if I pick this, you will see that now I have this mirror. So this is super cool. And now I'm gonna just stretch it, maybe like this. Let's pick it like this probably. And if I just keep duplicating the stuff, I'm just probably pushing it. Yeah, and you can just keep doing this forever. I'm gonna just use this, rotate it. Maybe like this, delete this mirror this one itself, again, like this. I'm gonna apply this, I'm gonna mirror, I'm gonna move a little bit this and mirror from this axis, and now I have this. That's it. So now I'm gonna try to make I don't know, like a row of apartments or floors. So you can use another modifier and just go with the array and array it in the Z-axis. Z-axis? Sorry. I don't know how to pronounce this. Let's just I don't know, 6 floors probably. Let me just check 0 here and just 1 here. Oh my goodness. Now I need to change the rotation scale so it will be accurate, and I can move this around, and there, now we have floors. And I can maybe, let's see, push it a little bit like there. You know what? Cube projection. And let's find something more clean there. These are different floors that you can just stretch, and maybe let's make it 16. Yeah. As you go and keep doing this process of mirroring, arraying,
changing the UVs, you will start to find some shapes that are interesting, and as long as you have like a decent, I don't know, a brief or mood board or some reference, you will find some interesting shapes that will probably end up in a successful building or asset or whatever you're doing. Let's try now one that is cylinder, just for the sake of doing it, but it's essentially the same stuff. So I'm gonna copy the material. Normally I would like, what I do is just first of all work the shape of what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna just do something really simple, maybe like this, maybe just a little bit of an inset here, and then extrude again, something like that. Okay, so that's it. Now if we go to UVs, you will see that some parts are already stretching, but again, this is not a problem. I could have actually checked the correction of UVs, but whatever, we can just go here, pick the loops that we want to correct, and just cylinder projection. Well, it's a little bit stretched, but that's not a problem. You can just fix it there. Now we can find some detail. Let's find something here, for example. Maybe this, I don't know. I'm doing it, sorry if I'm doing it like very messy, but I just want to show you how you can do it. And in here we can do the same. We can just find some stuff that looks cool, like let's say this. And for the top, we will find also places to just work from. Something like this, I don't know. I'll pick this one too. There. We can create also some loops. So let's inset and just keep going, I guess. Let's extrude, go. Pick the shapes that you want, and slowly you can start building your asset. It's just really simple. Now from here, another thing that you can do is play with a shape. So we can go to edit mode, Alt C to enter into the X-ray mode, pick one of the loops that we have and just play around. We can add more loops if you want, something like that, and maybe inset. And now we can find here something. I don't know, let's go with this. Yeah, so that's it. We go and keep changing this geometry as we go. We can just probably, I don't know, whatever you want to do. You can go here, just stretch it and find some, I don't know, whatever you want to find. Maybe this concrete or this one. And also, I forgot to say, but you can just start applying more materials. So I can add another slot and pick the metal material, metal dark, for example, assigned. And now this face has metal material. So that's also super useful if you, let's say I want to make this windows. Well, they don't look like windows, although I could make them look like windows, like just find something that looks like it. Let's say this. Inset, select a material that is just reflective, assign, and now you have the windows there. You can even extrude it back, and if you don't want to have this, just change, just move it around. That's it. You can also just use the add-on, and I think it's the easier way, so I'll go Shift F and just select maybe this and just extrude it. Let's maybe less, so I'm gonna make it smaller like this, and just extrude this too. And I mean, this looks like shit, but you get the point. So far I have just told you how to do the thing, but I think it's important to remember some basic rules of design. The first one is just keeping areas of rest and areas of intricate detail or high frequency detail separated in a ratio of 70-30, 80-20. Be sure to have areas of rest, so just don't overload. Right now, for example, this one is looking a little bit too much. One way to fix it will be just clearing out some of the areas that have too much detail and just go to concrete, just go to something that is not much heavy in detail. So now we have something that is less, I don't know, like annoying to the eye, but we can keep doing this and refine it, so we'll have a more pleasing to the eye prop or asset.
We did it with the texture and now we're doing it with the actual building. Another thing, I guess, is just grouping detail. It's just trying to find pockets of detail inside your own asset. Just don't overload it again. This area, for example, is a good place to have a bunch of stuff, but this one is still looking too much. So let me try to maybe improve it a little bit more. Okay, so I spent a little bit of time in this, I don't know what it is, but I just wanted to show you that using those simple rules you can get something more pleasing to see. So in these three things, what I was trying to do is just clearing some areas so I will have more areas of rest, and just trying to cluster all the detail in certain pockets. So for example, in this one, the detail is mostly clustered in this area, and I'll have also some small areas here with more intricate detail. Overall, the materials also, or the colors and values, would let you make those pockets even more evident. So in this one, for example, is all yellow, and that gives you a better read of the asset, as well as just having this type of like connections here. And that overall is a way to just iterate and iterate constantly with the same kind of shapes. Finally, just remember what I told you, just have a decent mood board or some references, because otherwise most of the time you end up doing a lot of, I don't know, it's just bullshit. But even if you are following the rules, it's better if you have some references or just a mood board, because otherwise sometimes you just get lost. You get lost in all this pulling and pushing, and just trying to find the detail can get very, I don't know, like difficult. That part of just finding the right detail and then arraying and just pushing and just trying to come out with interesting shapes, for me is super fun. It's the part where I can get creative and just really relax in general. But I get that some people just find this very tedious, so I understand that is another way that not everyone works in the same way. And don't stress too much if this doesn't look perfect, if the geometry is not like, I don't know, clean and the details are not crispy. It's up to you how much time do you want to spend in each of these assets. For me, because the goal is to create a 2D image or a concept, I just don't care that much, because I know that I can paint over, or maybe even if I'm going to, I don't know, send it to Unreal or an engine, at best, I will try to just not have my normals inverted on the faces. If you start to stress too much in making things perfect, at least for me, that kind of kills the fun, and suddenly I'm more worried about making a perfect bevel instead of just finding cool, interesting patterns or just trying to find the right shape. So
it's up to you. I guess, yeah, as I said, everyone is different. So at least for concept, I find this way of creation more satisfying and more efficient. All right, remember, you can grab this file with all the assets, links in the description and comments, and that's it. Hope this was useful in any way, and I hope to see you in another video.